Ever feel like you're walking on eggshells in your own home? That's exactly where Mark found himself. He loved his wife Sarah more than anything. They had been together for 10 years, building a life, a home, and a family. But somewhere along the line, a subtle shift had occurred. Sarah's teasing had developed a sharp edge, her requests had turned into demands, and her respect for him seemed to have evaporated into thin air. It started small. A sarcastic comment about his choice of shirt in front of friends. A dismissive wave of her hand when he tried to share something about his day. He'd laugh it off, telling himself it was just her way, that she didn't mean it. He was the laid-back, easygoing husband, right? He didn't want to be the guy who made a big deal out of nothing. So he swallowed his pride, forced a smile, and let it slide. But these small moments were like tiny cracks in a dam. Over time they widened. Soon it wasn't just in front of friends. It was at the dinner table with their kids. Sarah would openly criticize his parenting decisions, undermining his authority. "Oh, let them have another cookie, Mark. Don't be such a buzzkill." The kids would look from him to her, confusion in their eyes, sensing the tension. Mark felt his role as a father, as a partner, shrinking with every comment. Then there was the incident with the vacation planning. Mark had spent weeks researching a family trip to the mountains. He was excited, imagining the hikes, the campfires, the memories they create. He presented his detailed plan to Sarah, his face beaming with anticipation. She glanced at his spreadsheets and brochures for a mere second before scoffing. "The mountains? Seriously? That's so boring, Mark. I already told my sister we might go to the beach with them." She hadn't even discussed it with him. His weeks of effort were dismissed in a single breath. He felt a familiar knot tighten in his stomach, a mixture of anger, frustration, and a profound sense of powerlessness. He said nothing. He just crumpled up the brochures later that night and threw them away, a piece of his enthusiasm dying with them. The turning point, the moment the dam finally broke, came on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday evening. Mark had a tough day at work. A major project he was leading had hit a snag, and he was stressed. He came home hoping for a bit of peace, a moment of connection. As he walked in, Sarah was on the phone, laughing loudly. She saw him, and without even lowering her voice, she said into the phone, "Oh, you won't believe what Mark did now. He probably messed something up at work again. He's so clueless sometimes." She winked at him as if it were a shared joke. But it wasn't a joke. Not anymore. In that instant, something inside Mark snapped. It wasn't a loud, angry snap. It was a quiet, resolute click. All the years of biting his tongue, of forcing smiles, of letting disrespect slide, coalesced into a single moment of clarity. He didn't storm off. He didn't yell. He just stood there in the doorway, took off his coat, and waited. He waited for her to finish her call. When she hung up, she turned to him, still smiling. "Rough day, honey?" she asked, completely oblivious. Mark looked at her, his expression calm, his voice steady. "We need to talk," he said. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a statement. The lack of his usual forced cheerfulness caught her off guard. The smile faded from her face. "Okay, what's wrong?" They sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where he'd been undermined so many times. He didn't accuse. He didn't blame. He simply described. "When you make comments about me on the phone with your friends, it makes me feel disrespected. When you dismiss my ideas for our family without discussion, it makes me feel like my opinion doesn't matter. When you undermine my decisions with the children, it makes me feel like I'm not an equal partner in this marriage." He used I statements. He spoke about his feelings, not her flaws. He laid out the facts, the specific instances, without embellishment or anger. His voice was low and even, but it carried a weight it hadn't carried in years. It was the voice of a man who had reached his limit, a man who was finally claiming his space. Sarah was taken aback. At first, she tried her usual tactics. Deflection. "Oh, Mark, you're being so sensitive. I was just joking." But Mark didn't take the bait. He didn't argue. He just looked at her and said, It's not a joke to me. It's hurting me, and it's damaging our relationship. He let the silence hang in the air. For the first time, he wasn't trying to fill the silence, wasn't trying to smooth things over. He was letting her sit with the weight of his words. She tried another angle. Well, you do things that annoy me too. Mark nodded. I'm sure I do. And I want you to tell me about them. But right now we're talking about this. We're talking about the respect in our marriage. He gently but firmly steered the conversation back to the core issue. He wasn't getting sidetracked. He wasn't getting emotional. He was a calm, immovable force. For the first time in a long, long time, Sarah saw not just her easygoing husband, but the man she had fallen in love with, a man with conviction, with self-respect. She saw that his silence over the years wasn't weakness, but a misplaced attempt at keeping the peace. Now, he was choosing a different path to peace, one built on mutual respect. The power dynamic in the room had fundamentally shifted. He wasn't demanding respect with anger. He was commanding it with his calm strength. There were tears. There were long, uncomfortable silences. It wasn't an easy conversation. But Mark held his ground. He wasn't there to win a fight. He was there to save his marriage, and just as importantly, to save himself. He explained that he loved her, but he could not continue in a partnership where he felt constantly devalued. The unspoken message was clear. This changes, or everything changes. This one conversation didn't magically fix everything overnight. It was the beginning of a long, difficult process. They started going to couples counseling. Sarah had to unlearn years of habitual disrespect, and Mark had to learn to voice his needs consistently, not just when he reached a breaking point. He had to learn that setting boundaries wasn't an act of aggression, but an act of self-love and love for their relationship. Slowly, things began to change. Sarah started catching herself before making a sarcastic comment. She started asking for his opinion and genuinely listening to the answer. She began to publicly support his parenting choices, even if she disagreed, saving their discussions for private moments. She saw that his newfound strength didn't make him a tyrant. It made him a more engaged and present partner. Mark, in turn, felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He felt lighter, more confident. He brought his ideas back to the table, not just about vacations, but about their finances, their future, their dreams. He felt like a husband and a father again, an equal partner in a team of two. Their home, once a minefield of potential insults, started to feel like a sanctuary again. The shift happened because Mark finally realized a crucial truth: you teach people how to treat you. His passivity had inadvertently taught Sarah that it was okay to disrespect him. His calm, firm confrontation was a new lesson. It was a lesson that said, I love you, and I also love myself. And for our love to thrive, both of us must be respected. It wasn't about winning or losing. It was about redrawing the lines of their relationship so they could both stand tall within it, side by side. It was the quietest, most powerful revolution of his life. Thanks so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more content about building stronger relationships.